video in our series, and I have Jake with me today. Jake and I bonded over ambassador animals, I think specifically binturongs initially, but Jake has also taken some of my courses. He was actually a mentor for the Beyond Animal Training course, and we're just very like-minded. So why don't you tell us about you and how you got into the field and your backstory?
Sure. Hi. I always, like when I was real young, I wanted to be like a farmer. And then when I was a little bit older, I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I got lucky and started volunteering at my local zoo when I was like 13. And that really like sparked a lot of interest. And I have a lot of incredible mentors there that I still get to talk to. And it's still wild to me that these people that I like looked up to so much, I like still look up to them, but like I can call them friends now, which is just like wild. So I was there for a while. I have a degree in zoo and wildlife biology. And while I was getting that, I kept like interning and volunteering at local nature centers, and really ambassador animals have always kind of been my jam. Like I really enjoy connecting people to wildlife and a lot of like kind of heavy training of animals. And so after college or during college, I worked for like the Columbus Zoo, and I worked for a private zoo out in California because I wanted to get, kind of like a full picture of like what was out there. And then right after graduating, I made my way down here to Tennessee, and I have a full-time job down here at a zoo where I kind of just started as an ambassador keeper. And I've now worked my way up to a lead ambassador animal keeper.
Awesome.
It's going pretty well. I like it.
We're going to have help interviewing you today. How many internships did you do? Did you just do them in like the summers during college, or?
I did them in the summers during college. Yeah. So because I had volunteered at the Akron Zoo so young, like I volunteered for probably 5 years, and then I was able to get a seasonal job 1 year before college. And then, or one summer before college, I should say. And then I was able to use the connections I had built there to do different internships. Like I did a research internship, doing like ethogram work and guest interaction work. And then I did an internship helping the capybara stud book keeper work on the capybara stud book. Really cool experience to get.
Awesome. But that was all at one place. So you did a lot of different things at one facility. Is awesome.
So I did a lot of things at that facility. 2 of the summers that I was in college, I spent down at the Columbus Zoo as a seasonal employee working in their ambassador animal area, doing shows and encounters and programming. And then one of the summers I was a seasonal out in California working at a private zoo out there doing ambassador animal stuff as well.
Okay, I see.
So a lot of seasonal or like part-time or, internship type gigs for a while.
I was moving on the, how sometimes in this industry, it's like staying power is important. So if you show that you've been volunteering at Akron Zoo for so many years, people are more willing to give you an opportunity because they know that you're not going to just bail on them quickly.
Absolutely. And it's so great to just like have those connections still, because I can, professionally, I can message people or email people and get, what's your kinkajou do in this situation? Or like, what's this diet look like? But for, moving and getting new jobs and stuff like that, it's so great to already have your foot in the door and like be an applicant that they know. That really gives you an edge.
Yeah. Tell me, so you've been at your current facility now for how many years?
It's going to be 7 in May.
Awesome.
Just kind of wild.
Yeah. So you've been at your current facility for 7 years. Mm-hmm. What made you stay? Like national turnover rate of jobs is about 2 years. And I would guess zookeeping is even less than that. So was there a hard part that you had to like push through, or, tell me more about that.
There are always hard parts in jobs, as you are well aware. I am very fortunate. The zoo that I work for has a pretty stellar ambassador animal program with a lot of diversity in animals. And for me, like one of the things that I've always liked about ambassador animal work is you get to work with so many different animals every single day. I am not the kind of person who can just like go work with hoof stock and be happy. Like that just is not, doesn't float my boat. So getting to work with a binturong and then a caracal and then a eagle owl, you know, and then a cockroach, like that's very reinforcing to me, very stimulating. And so that really keeps me hooked. And every time that I have like looked at other jobs in my tenure here, I am like, do you have a species list? Well, you know, I want to know like, what does that look like? And also like, what does each staff member's role look like in terms of working with those animals? Because I think I'm very privileged here. My entire department is very privileged. We really push for everybody to work with as many animals as possible. Other places that I've worked in the past and other places that I know of are much more selective with like, oh, well, you know, you don't get to work with this animal, or like this one's only for these people. And there are some benefits to that, certainly. So I'm not like saying that that's a bad thing all the time, but for me, you know, to stick around, that diversity of species is just so powerful. So I have that going for me. My institution is also a pretty young one in its current location. And so there's a new exhibit opening every year, sometimes two a year. And that is just like a very cool experience to be a part of. Working for some other zoos in the past that were much more established, it was like every 10 years there was something new. So I wasn't like seeing that. I wasn't seeing the growth. But it's kind of cool to be not on the ground floor, but, you know, on the middle floor and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I'm like you. I like the diversity and I like things to change and not be very stagnant. So, you know, for sure in some of those larger organizations where you know, maybe the pay is better or there's maybe more opportunity for advancement, but yet not as diverse or exciting of, you know, of an atmosphere. I'm with you. I wouldn't thrive in those environments. So I think that's important because you know yourself. So you know what your deal breakers are, what's important to you, all of that. And I think that's really important too. Tell me what skills you think have made you a really amazing ambassador trainer.
I'm really into the process of communicating. And obviously, like, I'm not great at stringing a sentence together, but I really like, you know, figuring out how to best interact with my coworkers primarily, and then, you know, my animal coworkers second, and then guests third. And so I really have a passion for figuring out how we can all connect to one another in a really positive manner. And so that's, you know, one of the things that I kind of lean back on when I'm kind of trying to figure things out. I really just like training animals. And I think the way that we can communicate with our animals and be, you know, minimally intrusive and get maximum results by creating environments in which animals thrive is just so reinforcing. Like when you see an animal figuring something out that you have tried to communicate and it's happy and you're happy, or what we perceive to be happy, is just like, it's great. I think a lot of us have seen environments where there's like less positive training going on, or there's more coercion or more, you know, aversive stimuli being used. And I won't say that I've never participated in that, or that, you know, sometimes it's completely unavoidable. That's just like the belly of the beast of dealing with animals. It's like sometimes you have to get things done for overall welfare purposes, but the opportunity to kind of change the way that certain animals have been worked with, it is just so cool. And that is where I really like to kind of stick around and keep poking.
Yeah, plug for you to go back to, what was that, 2017 ABMA maybe, where
Oh
you
yeah.
presented. I really loved your presentation, was about a few different animals and their progression in how you're changing the way that you were working with them. And I think you had a hawk that had been worked traditional falconry for a really long time, and you were kind of sticking with that, with that particular animal. And your messaging, at least this is what I took away, was like that it's okay that we can constantly be moving forward, but it doesn't mean that for every animal completely shifting overnight is, necessarily the only or the best way to do things. So I really liked that approach. I've referred lots of people to that presentation.
Yay. I still stand by it. It's just like, as much as most of us would love to say, like, oh, let's just all do it this way across the board. This is the best way to do it, blah, blah, blah. Like, that is completely unrealistic. And anyone who's telling you otherwise either has too much time or money on their hands, or is just like not telling the truth. Like, it's just not
Right.
In theory, if you're building from the complete ground up and you have, executive leadership support, blah, blah, blah. But like, show me a place where you have that. I'd love to see it,
Right.
So I think and I'm grateful to have a leadership team that supports and kind of is pushing in the direction of like, what can we do? Like, we can't go whole hog in, but what can we do? And that, I think, benefits everyone.
That's a great illustration of, oftentimes when we're advocating for the way we want to train something or how we want to change an animal's environment, and you kind of feel like you're here and leadership feels like they're way over here, or maybe it's even between coworkers or the industry and you, like, it feels very black and white. But I love what you just said. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Because I feel like you're saying there's a spectrum in between there.
Yeah, I think there's just, like you said, like, we can't, I can't call up my director and say, hey, like, this animal is doing fine, but like, would be better doing it this way. That's like there's not a connection there. And so, I can communicate to my supervisor, my curator, et cetera, and it can be communicated up the chain. But as a keeper, as someone, the rank and file, we have to kind of be cognizant of the fact of where these people are coming from, right? Like, we have to understand what the CEO and the CFO and all of these people are seeing, and where their skills lie, right? And where my deficits are. And so putting yourself into their shoes and kind of understanding, realistically, like, I would love every single one of the ambassador animals that I work with to completely choose to participate in their care and their programming. I have, 30 some reptiles. It is very unrealistic for me to think that I can just call the bosses up and be like, hey, so we're going to like pull all of our animals from programming and like not do anything with them to, get out in front of the public and spend maybe 3 years, maybe 6 months, could be really quick, who knows, to retrain all of them to participate. That's just like not a realistic thing. And so the inverse of that is, okay, well, what can we do? Not, oh my God, we can't do anything. And once you look at it like a challenge, not a battle, that helps me. And a lot of it's semantics, as you know, like, it's just like, what am I telling myself today? But kind of finding a way to work together is key, I think.
I'm going to write that down. A challenge, not a battle. I really like that. What's your proudest moment so far in your career?
I don't know. I feel like I'm thinking, I don't know. I guess I'll say my proudest moment that I can think of right now, because I have a notoriously awful memory, my coworker and I trained this kookaburra that we got in from another zoo, probably around 6 months of age, and she was like completely scared of everything. And one of the things that our industry is like starting to kind of change, and I'm really excited about it, is the mandatory quarantine that is like it is so disruptive to an animal's life. It's already having to move from 10 states over, and then it sits in a fairly sterile environment for 30 plus days alone. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And like when I started like that, I like did not think anything of that, which is so funny to me to see like now I'm like such an aggressive, like, we can't let this happen. And I'm really grateful to see that kind of industry shift, at least with ambassador animals, because that's kind of what I know of folks trying to, okay, the vets are involved, and the vets are saying, okay, what kind of paperwork can we do on this end to, speed up. Anyway, this kookaburra, very neophobic, and we worked with her for a solid year before we were able to see any kind of forward momentum. We were just focusing on foundational behaviors like crating, weighing, coming to the hand, and she was still spooking every time. So we moved her outside, and that was a big shift for her. It got her away from some of the things that were startling her, and it really gave her more of a voice. And when we were able to do that, like, we're now at the point where we can take this kookaburra out. She flies in shows, she flies through the winter, she flies through the zoo for walks. Like, she's just like a changed bird, and she rules the roost and chases after hawks and gives me heart attacks. But it's truly spectacular to see where she came from. Like, I was watching a video the other day of like 2 months after she came in, and it was like, and now she's just a rock star. So that's a big win for me and my team. Like, it was a lot of hard work for us.
What was that, a 2-year period? How long? 3 years?
I would say probably 3 years, because we did a lot of flying inside. We did a lot of flying. Our kind of method is like in the animal's house, and then in a covered hallway, and then in a different room, and then working our way up to our amphitheater. And then one day we just were kind of cruising around, and we were like, I've seen videos of other zoos, like of people walking and their birds just kind of flying along. And I like tried to reach out to everybody, like, does anybody do this with a kookaburra? Like, is this stupid? No one had tried it that we had talked to. And we were like, well, we're just going to be stupid then and try it. And so far it's worked out. I mean, she really, I don't worry about her with birds of prey anymore, because she really goes after them and like tells them what's what. So that's a real blessing for me.
Well, and they're probably like, what are you?
Yeah.
We've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, like, you're small but mighty. So yeah.
That's awesome. Tell me what the lead role looks like at your facility. Like, how is a lead different than a traditional keeper? What's different?
So the goal is, like, we have 2 different ambassador animal buildings. We have a lead over each one. And so I kind of help interface with the facilities team and, all of the maintenance folks with issues with a building, because there's, always issues at any zoo with infrastructure. And so I try to handle, that kind of stuff, and just give the other animal trainers time to train. But then I'm also, kind of a senior trainer among the team. So I mentor the other staff in terms of both their programming training and their husbandry training, their relationship building with different animals. I'm at the point now where I help people work in on any of the animals in the collection now. That could be my role day to day. It's really fun. I love coming in and seeing what everybody wants to get up to today, and kind of helping guide, like, okay, what's the most efficient use of our time? What's the most efficient use of our resources today in terms of people and animals and things? That has been a really fun challenge, and a really, kind of welcome part of my new role.
Awesome. What skills are different that you needed in that role versus, I don't want to say just a keeper, because to me it's 2 completely different sets of of skills that you need?
I'm still working on, it's an interesting challenge moving from being a keeper. I was a keeper 1, then a keeper 2, and like most of my close friends in my city are also keepers with me, because that's kind of just what I've always done, is like my zoo people are my friends. And I also like moved here and didn't know anyone, so that, I have to be friends with them. So that has been an interesting kind of challenge. It's like, okay, I hear you. I want to talk to you about this, but like, that's not really an appropriate kind of interaction anymore. I gotta try to make sure that I am being a good role model. Not that like these people are grown adults. They know what they need to be doing. They don't need, me to be like, now, what do you think you should do in this situation? But I try to, all of the thoughts that run through your head when you're interacting with someone or you're frustrated by something, that like maybe as a keeper, I like wasn't as concerned about, and I would be more flippant with my responses. I now try to say those responses first. Like, okay, well, let's look at the intent of the person, and let's look at the history that you have with the person, the relationship that we have, and encouraging folks to talk directly to one another. And that has been like literally, I am 50% of the problem. Like I have to do that for myself just as much as I do other people. But I look at this kind of promotion, it's only 5-6 months old now. I look at it as a challenge to myself to grow as a leader. And I think that starts with like being a better coworker first and foremost. And then, yeah, can go from there.
Yeah, I like that. You're not necessarily, like that, the weight of it changes when you're like, oh, when you're complaining about so-and-so or this process or this thing, like now that I'm in a leadership role, I'm half responsible for that. So I can't just listen anymore, because sometimes listening is agreeing, right? Like when we let someone vent without reflecting anything back to them. Yeah, that's a fun challenge. And also congrats on the promotion. I didn't realize it was that new. So
oh, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I don't want to keep you all day. So what's something that you feel like you're struggling with right now, or maybe just the industry in general is struggling with?
I think my big struggle right now is an industry struggle too. It's where are ambassador animals going, and what are we doing about it, and what are we doing now? It's truly interesting seeing Tiger King and all of these other things come out. It's interesting seeing what's happening in the industry surrounding ambassador animals and what people's thoughts are, because I think like with very similar to like elephants or marine mammals, you see a lot of people who've never worked with ambassador animals having opinions on how we should work with ambassador animals. And I struggle with seeing that happen, because I'm like, I kept my big mouth shut with elephants because I was like, I do not know. Like that's not my business.
Right.
And that's not to say that people shouldn't have an opinion or aren't allowed to have an opinion on things that they are not experts in. But it's certainly interesting and eye-opening to see a lot of the zookeeping community kind of twisting, or all of a sudden they care about things that have been present for most of my time in the zoo field. So definitely, looking at hand rearing, looking at pulling animals from their parents, looking at certain species being used as ambassadors, that is a challenging thing. And it's, and what kinds of programming we're doing. All of those are kind of, hot topics that, we could talk about for hours, but I also have to talk to myself about it and like, okay, what do I really still feel this way? Or is there something new? It's an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I think, well, I have always been an advocate for, it's not what you're using the animal for, but it's how you're caring for the animal. So I have never been one to, you know, that line between like entertainment and education. Like I don't care if, you know, if we're reaching people by entertaining them, we're reaching them, you know. Now, if we're reaching them by entertaining and our care sucks, that's what I'm more concerned with. But there's places where we're educating them and our care sucks, you know, or
right.
So I don't think it matters what you're using the animal for. For me, it's far more about how we're caring for and how we're looking at that welfare. And I think sometimes that gets lost in this debate, you know, and again, it becomes black and white instead of this shades of gray. It's always more complicated than that.
It is. It's fascinating.
Yeah. What would you say to a new keeper? Like, what's your advice to someone, or maybe someone who's a little bit newer in the field and looking at Jake like, oh, the zookeeper who can bake and handle ambassador animals. He has so many skills, you know.
So many skills. Find things outside of zookeeping that make you happy. That is a huge thing for me. I was, and still really am, like truly obsessed with being in the zoo field and talking all things zoo. Like Lindley, I could talk to you for hours and hours and not be bored, but that's not super healthy to have that be your only personality trait. So I think that's a huge thing. I also really still highly recommend that people marry up, because as much as I am incredibly grateful to my director at my facility, because he has been talking about getting raises for keepers and supervisors for so long, and he has been making it happen. And that is, you know, truly so incredible. And I'm very grateful for that. But the industry is just still, it is what it is, you know? So having a partner who makes a good amount of money that we can have stability is just truly great.
I love that.
I can't lie.
I didn't do that.
That was like my first mentor ever in the zoo field, when I shadowed, probably when I was 10 years old, was like, you should marry rich. And I always remember that. And I was like, I didn't even try to do it, but it's working out.
Success. That's awesome. Well, Jake, it's been amazing talking to you today. I love, I mean, you and I, yeah, we could talk about training forever and get into the nuances. We could do an hour just on your kookaburra, I think. Like, I have so many questions already. So, you know, we'll just have to keep that door open and make sure that hopefully we get to see each other in person sometime soon. But I just thank you for your time. Thanks for your insights, sharing your knowledge with the industry and the world. Really value you.
Well, thank you. Lindley, I think it's not said enough how incredible all of the resources that you put into the community and the way you bring people together. It's truly great. So I'm very grateful for you and for our friendship too.